Meet Scott and Jimmy from the baritone and euphonium section. Scott begins class by oiling his valves and preparing his instrument. Jimmy is flexing his arms in hopes that a clarinet player will notice. Jimmy, I'm pretty sure that's not going to work. Oh boy. Scott diligently practices his music for Allstate. Sure, he might be showing off, but it's productive. Jimmy is also showing off what he learned. That's a nice baby shark, Jimmy. Hold on a second. If you open it from that, the spring will fall out. Jimmy is trying to rickroll the class, but he's breathing through his nose instead of his mouth. Scott is sitting up tall on the edge of his chair, tapping his toe and paying attention. Great job. Hang on, Jimmy. You don't need to stomp on the floor. Just your toe is fine. What the Sigma are you skibba-doing to that baritone, Jimmy? How do you even know what planking is? I don't think kids these days do that anymore. Who knows? One day Jimmy might be a famous musician, and Scott might just be a middle school music teacher. Not that that's a bad thing or anything. Teaching's pretty fun. No, Jimmy, don't put it on the chair like that. It's gonna fall over. You're doing 10 push-ups for every dent. Meet Scott and Jimmy from the clarinet section. Scott is getting his instrument set up right away. Jimmy seems to be struggling with his reed there. It's ligature, then reed. That way we don't have any more accidents, right, Jimmy? Just a single turn on the ligature is fine. Not that much. Scott remembers it's wise to put on cork grease before assembling your instrument. It's a great time to start soaking your reed, too. Scott remembers to slide up the ligature, then put the reed in. That way we don't have any accidents. Jimmy, don't put that No, Jimmy. Use a clarinet stand or hold it in your hand. Put your left hand on top. Your other left. See how Scott sits up straight with his back off the chair? Very mindful. Very cutesy. Very demure. When you're packing up, make sure to take your reed off the mouthpiece and don't put anything else in your case. Regularly swabbing the moisture out of your clarinet will help keep it in good shape and keep mold from growing. Jimmy, we talked about this. Please don't break your bridge key again. No, stop twisting. Stop twisting. Whether you're a goody two-shoes Scott or you're a goofball Jimmy, we want you in the band. Make sure to send this to a clarinet player or your band director. Meet Scott and Jimmy from the flute section. Jimmy, don't be rolling your instrument on your lap. Scott carefully handles the flute on his knee or his lap. Nice playing position, Scott. Legs are turned slightly to the right. Flute is parallel to the floor. Wait, what are you doing? What are you doing with that music stand? No. Jimmy, please. I'm begging you to stop. This isn't safe. No. Not Jimmy, I've had it with you. We will be calling your parents during recess today. I've seen enough. Let's go back to Scott. Scott uses a cloth to swab his instrument. No, I really don't want to see what Jimmy's doing right now. Well. If it isn't our music from the Christmas concert. Yep, just smash it in there, Jimmy. I'm gonna go home to cry. Meet Scott and Jimmy from the trombone section. Scott begins each class by greasing his trombone slide and spraying it with a little bit of water. Jimmy is late to class and is dragging his trombone on the floor in 7th position. Scott sits up tall on the edge of his chair with a good horn angle. Each note has a good start and ending. Good articulation, Scott. Jimmy, you're not supposed to slur with the trombone, and can you fix your grip? It's not a hammer. At least you're both using a good horn angle. That song should be called Ode to Jimmy, not Ode to Joy. Jimmy, your mouthpiece... No, your mouthpiece does not go in the bell. If it's not unstuck by the end of the hour, I'm calling your mom. Okay, Jimmy, that's enough. We're gonna go back to Scott now. Scott sits up tall in his chair and... Jimmy, quit spraying Scott. When Scott has to leave his trombone unattended, he sets it through the back of the chair so it has the best chance of staying safe. I think I'm about to have an aneurysm. What in the Sigma are you skibba doing over there, Jimmy? If nothing else, at least the repair shops will stay in business. I'll get my mouthpiece puller. Meet Scott and Jimmy from the saxophone section. Jimmy, that's a neck strap, not a wrist strap. Get your reed on your mouthpiece. Scott is adjusting his neck strap so it's not too high or too low. Jimmy, good God, what are you doing to that ligature? No, stop. Stop it right now. Scott brings the instrument to him instead of his body to the instrument. He's soaking his reed and adjusting his mouthpiece. Jimmy's gonna reach into his bag of reeds and find... Oh, I hope there's a good one in there. That one's chipped. That one's just a little old. Why don't you use that one? Oh, okay. Jimmy, no, not Old Faithful. It is not a nail file. Are you picking your teeth? It's not a toothpick either. Let's go back to Scott so we can see the right way to do this. After soaking his reed, Scott lifts the ligature up, then gently slides the reed down. He's careful not to over-tighten his ligature, maybe 1 or 2 twists. Jimmy, your neck strap's too low. Okay, now that's too high. Whether you're a Scott or a Jimmy, you're welcome in the band. You're gonna learn, and I'm here to teach you.
Meet Scott and Jimmy from the trumpet section. Scott uses an approved trumpet stand. Jimmy is feeling lucky. He puts his bell on the floor. Scott gently inserts his mouthpiece, applying a quarter turn. The water key should always be emptied into a trash receptacle and never onto the floor. Being prepared for class, Scott brought his book. And, oh, what's this? He also appears to have a pencil. Good job, Scott. Sitting up tall on the edge of his chair, feet flat on the floor, Scott begins to tap his toe. He's got a nice parallel to the floor horn angle. Anything between 45 degrees and parallel is perfect. Good job, Scott. Jimmy, this isn't color guard. You don't need to turn your trumpet. Given a little time and patience, both Scott and Jimmy will amount to be great trumpet players. Maybe a little bit more patience for one than the other. Remember to practice, kids, and take your instruments home.
Meet Scott and Jimmy from the percussion section. Jimmy, when it's time to play, you need to be standing up with your back straight. Scott's a little rigid. He's got a good rebound and good grip. Jimmy, now is not the time to be playing Hudson Mohawk, and get your pointer fingers off of the mallets, please. Your eyes should be up on the conductor. Scott always remembers to cover up the xylophone after playing. Nothing goes on top of the xylophone or other percussion instruments. Jimmy, no snacks in the band room, and don't put it on the timpani. Jimmy, stop eating during class. Scott regularly asks questions and makes markings in his music, so he doesn't make the same mistake twice in a row. Jimmy, I'm so proud of you. You're gonna write something down. Oh, no, don't. That better come off. Remember to put your percussion instruments and mallets away in the proper location. Scott, thank you so much for taking care of that. Whether you're a Scott or you're a Jimmy, we want you in the band. Just make sure that you're following the band director's instructions and paying attention so you can learn. There you go, Jimmy.
Hey, which one of these trumpets is yours?
Mine's the left one. Meet Jimmy. There's a Jimmy in every band.
Oh, okay. Now, you want to attract the flute girls? I got a secret weapon for you.
For some reason, this actually works.
Mr. K, my clarinet's broken. It won't go together.
Jimmy, didn't you learn anything yet? It goes on the other way.
Oh, man. Okay. Fixed it.
Dang it, Jimmy.
You can also take a little bit of that valve oil up.
Yeah, boy, that's how you rizz 'em up. Jimmy, is that my classroom supply bottle? Despite all common sense, woodwind players are still attracted to Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy.
Jimmy, you've been in band for how long? It's left hand on top. No. Do not attempt to replicate any Jimmy-related activities. Your band director will be very upset with you. Meet Scott and Jimmy from the cafeteria. Scott walks to the cafeteria and remembers running is against the rules. Jimmy, running to lunch can get you a warning. Scott waits his turn in line, standing single file, keeping his hands to himself, and reading the menu so he knows the choices. Remember to keep all drinks upright and never throw your food. Jimmy is digging through the milk cooler and touching many of them with his unwashed hands. Jimmy, let's remember to just take the first milk we touched and not spread germs. Scott makes eye contact with the lunch staff and uses his manners. Yes, I'll have pears, please. No carrots today, thank you. Scott scans his lunch card or types in his number and presses enter. Scott only takes what he needs from the condiment table and uses the tongs to grab things from the bins. That helps keep the food waste down. Jimmy, you know better. We don't use our hands in the pickle jar. Only take what you need and please use the tongs. Jimmy, you need to keep your hands to yourself and off of the other students. The only food you need to touch is on your own tray or lunchbox. Hey Jimmy, thank you so much for remembering to clean up your trash. And oops, you threw away the silverware. If an accident or spill happens, you need to report it to an adult who can help you out. We can work together to keep the spaces clean. Remember kids, when you make good choices and follow the cafeteria rules, we want to reward your good behavior by having TV Fridays or even an extra snack sometimes. Let's try to be more like Scott and lead by example while you're in the cafeteria. Meet Scott and Jimmy as they walk in the hallway. Scott walks calmly down the stairs, one step at a time. Jimmy can be heard stomping a mile away. Really, Jimmy? Sliding down the railing? Not allowed. Scott picks up his feet when he walks. It keeps his steps silent and doesn't leave any marks. Jimmy, your shoes are squeakier than your saxophone. pick up your feet. Look what our custodians have to try to clean off the floor after you guys walk in the hallway. Waxing these tiles takes a lot of work. Scott stops by his locker to reapply some deodorant. He's a middle schooler and wants to be considerate of others. Jimmy said he forgot his homework in his locker. Jimmy, make sure you're prepared. Oh no, that's Axe body spray. No, Jimmy, you're gonna stink up the whole hallway. Don't use any kind of spray, perfume, or cologne in the middle school hallway. When you're done, close your locker door quietly and carefully. If you need to get a drink or you need to go to the restroom in class, make sure to raise your hand. During class time, the hallway must remain silent. Get your drink and get back to class. Jimmy said he was going to the water fountain, but he stopped at his locker. Jimmy, what are you... Chocolate milk from lunch? That's not supposed to leave the cafeteria. It's all sour now. Ew.
Brother,
That's gross. Now Jimmy's on his phone. That's supposed to be off during the school day. How about instead of being real, you can be real quick getting back to class? Again, remember to close your locker door quietly. Carrying your Chromebook by the lid? All of your stuff is all dangling all over the place? Hug that binder. Oh, Jimmy, you dropped a banana peel. No littering in the hall. What? Oh. Now you've hurt poor Scott. He was just minding his own business. Lockers are not for people. Don't shove anyone in there and don't go in there yourself. Imagine if that door locked on you, Jimmy. There we go. Scott walks calmly out of class, hugging his Chromebook and his binder. Jimmy, I bet you're gonna jump for that doorway, aren't you? Yep. Typical middle schooler. You don't need to do that, you know. We know you can touch the doorway. Your class time is too important to interrupt. Don't interrupt other classes, and don't be missing too much of your class either. When you're in the hallway, get right through your business and get back to your class without bothering anyone. Don't be a Jimmy and be blue at CMS.